The dead are roaming the streets of Cardiff in 1869 when the Ninth Doctor and Rose arrive, just in time for Christmas, and teaming up with Charles Dickens, the TARDIS team encounter the Gelth, creatures sucked through the Cardiff Rift from the other end of the universe. Their home lost to war. Surely inhabiting dead bodies is wrong, though. Can both sides be held, or are these gaseous creatures not to be trusted? Welcome, friends and companions. Welcome. I am Enigmatic Joker, and this is the Random Entertainment channel for your entertainment, especially Doctor Who, the best sci-fi series ever. More than 60 years on screen. Today I will talk about a Ninth Doctor story that is called The Unquiet Death. First, some general info about this story. The Unquiet Death was the third episode of Series 1 of Doctor Who. It was the first episode of the BBC Wales series to be set in the past, relative to the viewer. It was also the first since Timeless to feature an extended encounter with a historical figure from Earth's past. From a production perspective, it was significant for being writer Mark Gatiss' first televised Doctor Who episode. This episode features the first appearance of the Cardiff space-time rift, which would reappear this series in Boomtown and become the initial focus of Torchwood. The myths of the quote darkness and the quote big bad wolf end quote would come to pass in turn left and the parting of the ways respectively. Okay, well, I will not dive now into the plot. So if you haven't watched this story yet, I highly recommend you to watch this first. And you can decide for yourself if you want to listen further. So, ready? In the funeral parlor of Sneed and Company in the Victorian era, Mr. Redpath reaches over the open casket holding his dead grandmother, Mrs. Peace. Closing his eyes in sorrow, he does not see a blue glowing vapor wash over the corpse and enter it. Mrs. Peace's eyes snap open as she grabs Redpath by the throat, strangling him to death. Gabriel Sneed, the undertaker, rushes in and tries to close the lid on the reanimated corpse, but she knocks him unconscious to the floor. Then gets up and wanders onto the street, wailing. Sometime later, Gwyneth, Sneed's young servant girl, returns from looking after the carriage horses in the stables to find Sneed recovering from the cadaver's attack. This is not the first time there have been zombie incidents in the funeral home, and Gwyneth tells Sneed he needs to get help. Sneed protests that it is not his fault and that they have to get Mrs. Peace back before she does any damage. In the hearse, Sneed orders Gwyneth to use her clairvoyant abilities to seek out the dead woman, and Gwyneth focuses on the old woman's last desire to see Charles Dickens, who is giving a reading in a music hall in town at Tennyson Lodge. Dickens himself is in a melancholic mood as he waits for his stage call. He feels old, is estranged from his family, and his imagination is growing thin. He feels he has seen all there is to see. In the TARDIS, Ninth Doctor and Rose Tyler are having a rough ride. As ship shakes and they hold onto the console, the Doctor aims the TARDIS for Naples in 1860. When they land, Rose is about to rush out when the Doctor tells her that she would start a ride in her 21st century clothing. Rose returns in more suitable attire, a one off-the-shoulder gown, and the Doctor admires her beauty, quote, considering that she is human. They step into the snow-covered streets of history. The Doctor realizes when he buys a newspaper that his aim was a bit off. It's Christmas Eve, 1869, and they aren't in Naples, they are in Cardiff. In the music hall, Dickens gives a reading of A Christmas Carol about Scrooge. So just as he reaches the point where Marley's face appears in Scrooge's door knocker, he stops short. In the audience, Mrs. Pierce starts to glow blue. Vapor pours out of her mouth. And an ethereal gas with a vaguely humanoid shape sweeps around the hall, emitting ghastly screams and sending the audience into a panic. The screams attract Rose and the doctor, as well as Neat and Gwyneth. The vapor completely leaves the dead woman's body and is sucked into a gas lamp. As the body collapses, Dickens accuses the doctor of being responsible for the illusion. Sneed and Gwyneth carry the limp body out. Rose goes in pursuit, and Sneed knocks her out with chloroform, bundling her into the hearse with the dead woman. The doctor commandeers Dickens' coach. The great writer's protests vanish when the doctor discovers who he is and gushes over his genius. When the doctor tells him about Rose, Dickens chivalrously joins the chase. Rose awakens in the locked viewing gallery of the funeral parlor, just as the gas takes over Redpot's body. As the doctor and Dickens arrive at the parlor and force their way in, Mr. Redpath and his grandmother climb out of their coffins to menace Rose. But the house's gas lights flicker. The doctor realizes there is something living in the pipes. He hears Rose cries and breaks the door down, putting her away from the corpses. He asks them who they are. The corpses cry that they are dying because the Cardiff rift is failing, and these forms cannot be sustained. The screaming blue vapors stream out of the dead, and the bodies collapse again. After, after recovering from the incident, Gwyneth pours the doctor's tea just the way he likes it. That is, with 2 sugars, without asking him what his preference is. Rose lashes out at Sneed for drugging her, kidnapping her, and locking her in a room full of zombies. The stricken Sneed explains that the house has a reputation as haunted, which is why he bought it at such a low cost. The doctor tells him that the house was built on top of the rift, a crack in space-time that's growing. These entities are from across the universe. Dickens is skeptical, refuses to believe there are ghosts in the gas pipes. The doctor informs them that dead bodies release gas when they decompose, making ideal vehicles for these gaseous aliens. Dickens tells the doctor shakily that if what he has seen is true, then perhaps his entire life spent fighting against injustice and for social causes in what he thought was the real world has been for nothing. The doctor tries to reassure him that the real world is still the same. There's just more than Dickens thought. Rose talks to Gwyneth, finding out she was taken in by Sneed when she was 12 years, when she was 12 after her parents died. Two girls initially get along well. Gwyneth sees the future in Rose's mind. Is shocked when she sees the things Rose has experienced with the doctor. She apologizes, admitting her clairvoyance and saying her abilities have been growing stronger recently. The doctor has been listening and surmises that Gwyneth's abilities are due to her growing up in this house over the rift. She is the key. He suggests they hold a seance. Gwyneth summons the aliens who speak through her. They identify themselves as the Gelth, a species whose bodies were destroyed in the last Great Time War, which left them facing extinction in a gaseous state. The few Gelth remaining need to come through the rift and take over dead bodies to survive. Rose is repulsed by the idea, but the doctor insists they help. Gwyneth will stand at the spot of the rift down in the morgue and allow the Gelth to use her as bridge. Rose continues to protest. She knows that the Gelth do not succeed. because the future does not have walking death. But the doctor tells her that time is constantly in flux. The future can be rewritten. Nothing is safe. In any case, Gwyneth wants to help her angels. The doctor warns the Gelf this is only a temporary solution. Once they possess the bodies, they will take them to another place where they can build permanent ones. However, when Gwyneth stands at the rift and the Gelf begin to come through her, the numbers are a few billion, much more than they originally implied. They show their true colors. Only that corpses are not enough for them. They will kill to supply themselves with more hosts and occupy the planet. Gwyneth stands motionless at the position of the rift as the Gelf stream in. He demands Gwyneth to stop, only to have his neck snapped by a reanimated corpse and be taken over. Dickens, overwhelmed, flees as the doctor and Rose are backed into a corner. The doctor apologizes to Rose that she is going to die over a century before she was born, but she assures him that she wanted to come. The doctor and Rose hold hands as they prepare to go out fighting together. He tells Rose he is glad she met her. She replies the same, and they share a final smile. Outside, Dickens sees a pursuing Gelb get sucked into a gas lamp on the street with a scream. Suddenly, he has an idea. He rushes back into the house, turning off the flames and turning up the gas. He goes into the morgue, doing the same, explaining to the doctor what he is doing. These creatures are gaseous, so the moment the house is filled with gas, the, the Gelb will be sucked out of the corpses like poison from a wound. And so this is precisely what happens. The Gelb pour out of the collapsing corpses, screaming and swirling around in the confines of the morgue. The doctor tells Gwyneth to send them back, but she says he's only strong enough to hold them there. As she takes out a box of matches from her apron, but Rose won't let her carry through. The doctor tells Dickens to get Rose out before the two succumb to the gas fumes. He tries to convince Gwyneth to leave the Gelb to him. As he touches her neck, however, he discovers the truth and leaves. Gwyneth lights a match, and the house and the Gelb are consumed in an explosion. The doctor tells Rose that when he checked Gwyneth's pulse, he realized that she was dead, and probably had been from the moment she stood in the rift. Rose does not understand because Gwyneth spoke to them and saved them. In response, Dickens quotes Shakespeare. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in your philosophy. Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 5. Rose looks sadly at the ruins of the funeral home and mournfully states, quote, she saved the world, a servant girl. No one will ever know. End quote. Dickens thanks the doctor as they stand in front of the TARDIS. Dickens has overcome his depression and has regained his thirst for knowledge and adventure. The things he has seen tonight have given him hope. There is more to learn. He plans to patch things up with his family and finish the mystery of Edwin Drood. Identifying the murderer as a blue elemental to secretly spread the truth of the Gelf. He asks the doctor if his books will last. The doctor assures a smiling Dickens his work will last. Forever! Inside the TARDIS, Rose asks if Dickens' writing about what they just experienced will change history. The doctor tells her that Dickens will never get to write his story. He dies the following year. And the mystery of Edwin Drood will never be finished. Right now, though, they have made him more alive than he has been in a long time. The doctor decides to give Dickens one final surprise. Dickens watches in wonderment as the TARDIS fades away before his eyes. He laughs out loud and walks through the streets of Cardiff, wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and exclaiming, God bless us, everyone. So that, my friends, is the end of this story, The Unquiet Dead. All names and cast members. Doctor, the Ninth Doctor is played by Christopher Eccleston. Rose Tyler is played by Billy Piper. Gabriel Sneed is played by Alan David. Red Pet is played by Hugh Rice. Mrs. Peace is played by Jennifer Hill. Gwyneth is played by Eve Miles. Charles Dickens is played by Simon Callow. The stage manager is played by Wayne Cater, and driver is played by Meg Povey, and the Geld is played by Zoe Thorne. Yeah, that's so. Well, from world building, we know that according to the Doctor, Rose is 19 years old. Um, the Doctor says that as he panics about how he's going to die in a dungeon in Cardiff, the Doctor claims he has seen the fall of Troy, World War V, and has pushed boxes at the Boston Tea Party. I've always said the Doctor was aiming for Naples 24th of December 1860 when they arrived in Cardiff actually in Christmas Eve 1869. Some things about the space-time anomalies. The rift is a weak point in time and space. And already said, that's also a great thing in the Torchwood series. Uh, and during more stories of Doctor Who, there's to some extent there is reference to the rift. And again, the rift is a weak point in space and time. Yeah, that's the reason why you can actually tell stories um, uh, in this perspective of the rift. Actually, this great time war is already is mentioned in the story. The Geld mentioned the time war, so it's also a thing. And the Bad Wolf arc is when looking into Rose's mind. Gwyneth is frightened and breaks off contact when she sees the things you've seen in the darkness. The big bad wolf. So she sees that. About Eve Miles, but there's a very familiar face, yes. Because, yeah, when Eve Miles was cast as Gwen Cooper in Torchwood, it was noted that the character she played in The Quiet Dead had a similar name. Rusty Davies initially stated that there was no relationship between the two characters. But in the fourth season finale episode, Journey's End, written by Davies. There's a short conversation between the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, and Rose Tyler, which suggests that Gwyneth's physical characteristics remained as an echo in the time rift and eventually imprinted themselves into Gwen. So Russell T Davies has explained it as it's not familial as we understand it. There's no blood tie. Spatial kinetic multiplicity means an echo, a repetition of a physical traits across a time rift. So that explains everything. um, Also, an interesting thing is that the Gabriel Sneed was initially conceived to be a younger character, and yes, with David Tennant in mind for the role. The later 10th Doctor. So he was already in the picture, as a matter of fact. Um, yeah, was also the original a scene where the Doctor responds to Rose's assertion to, but recorded history cannot be altered by taking her to devastated 2005, inspired by a similar scene in the period in the midst of Mars. Uh, so um, about the continuity, because again and again, uh, Doctor Who stories and episodes are in some to some extent related to each other, reference to or linked to each other. Um, uh, yeah, interpretation of continuity. It's always the interpretation, and a few things that is the continuity is that Gwyneth references the quote "big bad wolf" when sensing Rose's thoughts. Phrase "bad wolf" will prove to have special meaning in Rose's future, revealed in TV story in the parting of the ways. Second thing is that Rose has been thinking about her father a lot recently, foreshadowing her meeting him in Father's Day. A third thing is that the doctor suggests Gwyneth's powers are due to her growing up near the time rift. Mrs. Tyler developed psychic abilities due to spending her childhood near a time fissure. They said in the TV story Image of the Vandal. Fourth thing is that the Doctor and Rose revisit Cardiff Rift in the 23rd century in TV story Boomtown. And Torchwood 3 would regularly monitor and interact with it over the course of many years. For example, in the TV story Everything Changes at all. Fifth thing is that the Doctor gives Rose some complicated directions to the TARDIS wardrobe. He says, first left, second right, third on the left, go straight ahead, under the stairs, past the bins, fifth door on your left. Previously, the fourth Doctor asked Leela to escort Chancellor Borussia to the VIP suite. The directions were so complicated that she lost her way and left him in a luxurious bathroom instead. You see that in the TV story, The Invasion of Time. By the way, this echoes a similar conversation between Romana and Chris Parsons in on broadcast TV episode Shada, and about where to find Tara's medical kit. Also, the 11th Doctor gives a similar complicated set of directions to Amy Pond about finding their drawing room that is in the game TARDIS, called TARDIS. So, so 11th Doctor says, half a mile down the corridor left, then right again, then the third right, past a word, a swirly thing, left, then the other left, through the sunroom, past a green door, right along a wall until it becomes slimy, down a lift to the third floor and straight ahead, easy peasy. So what the 11th Doctor says. And why they forgotten the first line. So what? That's a very humorous thing. The Doctor knows the way in the TARDIS. So another thing is that the Doctor's partiality to the works of Dickens was indicated previously when the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, quoted A Tale of Two Cities that is in the Ultimate Foe, that is in the Key to Time season. No, that's not that is Trial of the Time Lord. Yeah, Trial of the Time Lord. The fourth Doctor also read out a description of a little Nell's dress from an old curiosity shop. It's also a link to a TV story of the TV story on broadcast story Shala. One things that Rose later references both her conversation with Gwyneth and Gwyneth's sacrifice in TV story Boomtown. The Doctor previously fell for trickery only to endanger others in his first. In the TV story The Daleks. In the second TV story The Evil Daleks. The third is the Doctor and the Silurians. Fourth, the Brain of Morbius. The fifth, Resurrection of the Daleks. Sixth, Doctor Audio the Juggernauts. And seventh, the greatest show in the galaxy. And the eighth, incarnations in Audio the Audio story To the Death. Rose and then Doctor notice that Gwen Cooper bears a strong resemblance to Gwyneth, which the Doctor attributes to several generations of Gwen's family having lived in Cardiff, displayed in TV story Journey's End. That's what the explanation in the broadcast is. Another explanation from Russell. Use your cannon. um, Donna Noble unintentionally references these events. Quote, yeah, but think about it. There's a murder, mystery, and Agatha Christie. No, but isn't that a bit weird? Agatha Christie didn't walk around surrounded by murders. But really, I mean, that's like meeting Charles Dickens. And he's surrounded by ghosts at Christmas. End quote. The Doctor reacts but does not explain as shown in TV story The Unicorn and the Wasp. Now thinks that Doctor will later have many more adventures at or near Christmas as displayed in TV stories The Christmas Invasion, The Runaway Bride, Voice of the Damned, The Next Doctor, The End of Time, A Christmas Carol, The Doctor, The Widow and the Wardrobe, The Snowman, Last Christmas, Twice Upon a Time, and The Church on Ruby Road. Another thing is that during his sixth incarnation, the Doctor encountered the artful Dodger, a major character from Dickens' novel Oliver Twist in the Land of Fiction. We hear that in the audio series Legend of the Cyberman. Also, Charles Dickens later appears as part of an alternative timeline created by River Song's deviance of a fixed point in time, as experienced in TV story The Wedding of River Song. Another thing is that Dr. mentions that he saw the fall of Troy. We see that in the TV story The Myth Makers. Another thing is that during his eighth incarnation, the Doctor met Charles Dickens in the Reform Club in London in 1866. The two of them got into an argument about an error in Great Expectations. You see, we hear that in the audio story, The Man Who Wasn't There. There's also a thing in that there's not only time the Doctor is called Nevi in his incarnation, and there's also Prose Albinus Dancer. And the last thing is that despite Rose and Dickens struggling to breathe as the Dungeon fills with gas, the Doctor shows no issues with it due to his respiratory bypass system. The fourth Doctor was previously able to avoid breathing in helium because of it. You see that in link to the TV story The Robots of Death. And that, my friends, is all that I have to say about this. So, if you want to contact me, you can contact me via YouTube with your comment on our video, or you can visit me on the Discord server, Random Entertainment Channel, Tech Doctor Who, and you'll find me very quick. You can send me in private message, or you can contact me via server, and we can have a nice chat. So, cheers, mate. Have lots of fun. Your host, Enigmatic Joy. So, enjoy your day. Have a nice day. Uh, bye bye. Bye bye.